Hey, MBA hopefuls, great to see you. We're live with MBA Waves, talking all things business and education. We're so happy that you're joining us today. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great content so we can continue to help you on your journey to business school. On today's episode, we have a great guest. We're super excited. This is episode 154, and this is about AI and round two. And we're bringing a focus on really digging in deep to find out how to use AI ethically for your MBA applications, what AI looks like in the classroom, and the top 3 tips for success in round two. So, I'm your host, Bara Sapir. I'm joined by my 2 other hosts, one who just popped right in. Hi, Eric. Hi, Krithika. Great to see you all. And we are joined by 2 of our friends and colleagues, Kelly Wilson, who is MBA admissions consultant at accepted.com and also a former admissions director at Tepper, and also Michelle Kassorla. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
You said it right.
Awesome. Associate professor of English at Georgia State University and an AI expert. So a big welcome to both of you. We're really happy to have you join us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful. So just to launch right in, I'm going to start with Kelly. Since 2003, we've had a huge shakeup due to the advent of AI tools. And so what ways are you encouraging AI in the MBA applications?
Yeah, I think, from the standpoint of the application, my approach is it can be used for sure, but as a starting point, not producing the end result, not writing the essay for you. I think it is so easy to tell when a candidate has used AI to generate an essay. And as consultants, we see it, the admissions committee see it. The essays are very generic and don't really provide the level of detail about the applicant and their experience. And so you really want to be able to dive into kind of what you're thinking and how you may have felt during a situation. And AI just cannot do that for you. I think another way that a candidate could use AI would be doing some school research. Now, there are some limitations, and Michelle may have more expertise in this than I do, so feel free to jump in, Michelle, and help me out if something I say isn't completely the full picture. But my understanding is that, for instance, ChatGPT doesn't have limited access to most websites or real-time data. Browsing has to be turned on, and if it's not turned on, then they have the current version, I think, goes up to 2023. So I think you just have to be aware of what the limitations could be. Another use for AI, I think, in the application process is really around ideation, trying to get a sense of, maybe trying to get a sense of what components of a story should I share when I'm trying to explain an example of a leadership challenge. That may be a really good use of AI. Not necessarily write this for me, but help me kind of, what are the components I need? The last thing I would say that comes to mind quickly for me is understanding career paths. So I am working with a client who's pivoting from consulting to another area. And the best way to, or a better way to understand the path between maybe her short-term and her long-term goals, since this is a pivot for her, is really to do some kind of digging about what is a career path for a typical, role in an organization in a given industry. What does that career path look like? So that may be another really good way to use AI when working on an application.
I have to admit, I've been, when we were preparing to do this, a friend came over who's doing a lot of AI artwork. And I have friends here in the Bay Area who are starting to do AI artwork. So I was like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see what this is. And I've used ChatGPT for, I actually gave a presentation at the Board of Supervisors, and I used Dr. Seuss and the issues that were affecting the county. And I was able to bring it together, like the way that you're talking about, like the ideation and but I created this artwork this past week, and it was so much fun
Yeah.
that I, so it's such a powerful tool, but you're right. It has, it has this surface quality, right?
Hmm.
This,
Hmm.
the authentic voice, which we're going to be talking about, I believe more, has to be human driven.
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly a tool to use,
Mhm.
not the answer to all of the work we need to do in working on applications.
Hmm. That was a great start about the AI, and I have a lot to say about it on both sides. And I want to just pivot to Michelle now, who's going to give us the picture on the other side of the classroom, which everyone wants to get in. So, Michelle, how are you using AI in the classroom?
So we, my colleague Eugenia Novokshchanova and I have been using AI almost exclusively to teach English Composition 1 and 2 for over a year. And I think we're the only people in the world that were crazy enough to do this, but we found out some really important things about AI and how it can be used and why it should be used and what it can be used for and some of the really great things about it. So the first thing is you can't tell if it's AI. You can't. If someone is using the correct prompting techniques, it's almost impossible to tell if something is AI. There are some really bad prompts. If you put in bad prompts, you end up with garbage in, garbage out. But you really can't tell. So there's three ways that our students use AI, just to start out with that. The first way is called Write First, and where you write something first and then you use AI to edit it, to look through and as a tutor, make sure that you're doing the right thing. The second way is AI first. If you're ESL or you don't have the greatest educational background, you might want to do AI first. And that's when you ask AI to write it, but then you use that as a starting point and use it kind of like a skeleton, and you write over it with your own voice, your own ideas, and it just gets you started because the page is empty and some people have a really hard time with an empty page. Also, it'll help to organize you, give you some ideas for how it should look, how it should be. So, for example, if you've never written a business letter or you've never written a business school application, you might want to start with AI just to see what it's going to do for that business school application and then write over it with your own voice. And what do I mean by voice? I mean to actually speak it out loud. So read it aloud. If there is a word that you wouldn't use or you don't know, replace it with something you would know. If there's phrasing that you wouldn't use that sounds weird in your mouth, don't use that phrasing. Go in and make it your own and give it your own kind of personal voice, whether it's a business letter or whether it's an application. You need to be making sure that it sounds like a human. So we tell our students, look, we don't care if you use AI. AI is going to be ubiquitous. It's going to be part of the future. Everyone is going to need to use AI. But there's some things that that employers are going to want. So we started out with what would an employer in the future want from someone who is using AI. The first thing is that they sound human, that they have an understanding of their audience and the tone that you should use with that specific audience. The second thing is that everything must be factual. AI has a penchant for making things up and then trying to convince you that what it's made up is correct. So you need to fact check everything. You need to have support and evidence for everything that you say, especially if you got it from AI. You need to make sure that you're using it efficiently. There's a whole bunch of different AI tools, and each one of them does something differently. Each one of the general AI tools, for example, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Llama, they all have really good ways that they can help you, and then there's some limitations in each one of those models. So it's good to play with all of them to get some idea of which one is going to work for which. And then of course, yes, there's image generation and using multimodal stuff. Not only image generation, but there's also video generation. You can use, for example, a tool called HeyGen, which will actually create an avatar for you, a realistic avatar, and will actually speak. If you want with your own voice, you can train it. So these are some crazy things you can do with AI and things that we have our students play with every day. Also, you can make infographics, charts, all kinds of things with AI. So AI is not limited to just text, and it's moving so quickly that it's very hard to stay on top of it. But you should do your best because according to the Microsoft and LinkedIn future work study, they said that something like 70% of employers are looking for people with AI skills. You're going to need to know how to use AI. So you must be efficient. You must know how to use your tools. You must be transparent. You must tell people how you used AI, what you used AI for, and why you used AI. That's the really important part, is why you used AI. And you also need to be kind of really thinking about how you're using AI. Be careful about biases. AI is very biased. You don't want to put anything personal or anything proprietary into an AI because it will be shared with the world. And you need to be careful how you are using that information. So when you put something into AI, it's all about prompting. And if you don't know how to prompt, there's some really great prompting classes out there that are for free. For example, Jules White offers a really good prompting class on Coursera that is absolutely free. And you can learn how to prompt AI effectively, and it will really help you understand not only how to prompt, but the capability of the tool.
Who is the person on Coursera?
Yes, his name's Jules White, and he's at Vanderbilt.
Great.
Like 3 million people have taken the course. It's crazy. It's a crazy number of people, but it's a really good course.
What I noticed when I created what I did, I almost wanted to fact check the image to see where did this image that was an amalgam of different ideas that I put together. Like, I want to make sure, like, where is this coming from that I've now created? Is it really something new, or did it pull something that already existed off of?
It's absolutely something new, but it is based on things that are put into the internet. So you have to think of AI this way. I tell my students, okay, so I have a PhD. And to get that PhD, I sat in classes, I read books, I watched videos, I did all kinds of things to get the knowledge that I need in order to lecture to you. Now, when I lecture to you, am I giving you all the references of every piece of information that I got? No, I'm not, because I don't know really even where I got them. There's so much. And AI does something like that. I'm scraping from the information pool that I have. AI has a data pool and is scraped from all over the internet, from pictures, videos, things that people have written. That's why there's bias, by the way, because there's more people with a certain opinion than there are of other people who have different opinions. So there's going to be some bias. There's going to be some ways that AI is not exactly, it's not human. It is absolutely just like, you know, those programs that fill out forms for you. AI is like that, but it's a lot more sophisticated. Instead of just having your name and your address and all those things that you would need to fill out a form, it has billions of bits of information. And what it's doing is it says, okay, you want this information? Great. And so it'll pull it together from all of the stuff that it has. And every time it gives you information, it'll be something completely different.
It's really remarkable and fun. All right. I'd like to know, for myself and also for students, how do they retain their authentic voice? Because Michelle, you started off by saying very specifically, it's almost indistinguishable, right? When you get to a certain level, I would imagine with what you're saying, also the prompts are so sophisticated that you can actually replicate authentic voice, maybe. And so can you really talk about how students would retain their authentic voice? And do you have to go back into it again and again, the way we were also
So the authentic voice doesn't come from AI, it actually comes from you. So when you write with AI, what you have to do is you have to rewrite whatever it gives you, because AI will basically give you a pretty general answer. And I mean, if you ask for very specific stuff, it'll give you more specific stuff, but it cannot analyze, it cannot evaluate, it cannot give a human voice. Now, it can do some things that are pretty close to that. For example, the second week after ChatGPT 3 dropped, my high school student who was in the 9th grade had already taught AI to read his own essays and use his style to create new essays. So and so what happens there is you can train it. It's called a mini shot prompt. And so you could put in several things and then ask it to write in that style. So you can do that, but it also may not come out authentic. You always have to fact check. You always have to read. You always have to make sure that it's saying what you want in the way that you want it. And a lot of times it isn't. You just have to rewrite it. So the things that we teach our students to do, for example, is number one, you can brainstorm with AI. You can use AI to get all kinds of ideas. You can get models of things in AI. So I could say, I need to do a business school application with an essay that talks about my experience that grew from working at Wendy's on the weekends when I was 16 to being the head of computer cellular at AT&T. And I need to, so here's my resume, and you can put your resume in there and you can say, give me an essay that talks about all that experience. And then after it gives you that essay, you're going to read through it and you're going to say to yourself, is this how I would say it? Is this the kind of information that I want? Is there something more that I want here? Is there something less that I want here? And you're going to have to go carefully through it and just sift through what you have. But it will give you that initial, essay that'll kind of give you the model for what it should look like when it's done. And you can start to tweak with the details. And that's really helpful.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I have a question here to Kelly. Kelly, how do you think students are retaining their authentic voice?
Yeah, I think so. So it's interesting hearing Michelle talk a little bit about what she's doing in the classroom. I mean, it's fascinating, really. I don't know that that's the level of that's the level that candidates are using, at least the ones where I see that it's obvious when I've talked to admissions officers or when I see essays myself. I mean, it is oftentimes, or most often, clear. And I guess if I'm not able to tell Michelle, then I wouldn't know, right? But when I do pick it out is quite often is it just does not have the level of detail. And so as 10 years from now, it'll be really interesting to see if schools even use essays anymore. And maybe it won't be 10 years, maybe it'll be 2, who knows? But I think that the piece that I think is so important, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead of where we want to go with the discussion, but I think the piece that is critical is the self-reflection and the ability to draw on one's experiences and, thinking how they've grown and developed. And I think I mentioned that before. I mean, I don't know how AI can get inside your head to get at those types of things. And so, retaining the the authentic voice, I think, is an important piece to this, where it's interesting. I didn't think about having the AI write it for you and then going back to it, but I feel like that. I mean, for me, where we are now, I feel like for many people, that's going to be more work to get it to where you want it to be than to use it as a tool for helping you to understand. I agree with the structure, maybe, or, how do I talk about this thing? Perhaps, how do I talk about facing a challenge and being able to convey that I, was successful in doing that. That to me is a useful way to use this tool. And I think, at least where we are now, it seems to me that that's the direction that most of the candidates that I'm working with are going. But I'm super fascinated by what Michelle just shared with us as well.
I'm
And Michelle,
thinking.
Sorry, go ahead, Bara.
Oh, I'm thinking about that transformative piece that you're talking about. Like, I mean, ultimately we are a composite of our experiences, which include our trauma, our joys, our revelations, our insight. And unless we plug that in, they're not going to know what our triggers are or what perspective or orientation we have as a result of something. So if AI says something like, it was a transformative experience for me, and stops there, any adcom who reads that is going to be like, and
yeah,
like, yeah, where,
and
like,
and that's the thing, is that AI won't go into those specific things. So you can start out with something that is AI, but you really need to go in and put that human voice in it, because if you don't direct it, if you aren't focused on making it work, then it's just not going to do that. But you can, get that general outline of it, what it should look like. Because, for example, I've never applied to business school. I don't know what it's supposed to look like. So AI has millions of bits of data about people who have applied to business school and what their applications look like. So I can stick a whole bunch of stuff in. I can upload my resume. I can give it a short story that I wrote. I can and say, do me an application thing for this. And it might come out really great. If it doesn't, I can come back and say, okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else. Let's try this. And it'll keep going. And also, you can start to get ideas even when you aren't writing. I don't know if you know about how you can use AI to speak. So this is ChatGPT. Hello, I need to apply for a business school, and I want you to give me 20 questions, one at a time, about my experience in business. I want you to wait for my answer. And then at the end, I want you to give me an application essay of at least 500 words. So it's going to think about what I'm saying. Hopefully it heard me. Did you hear me? And it'll usually come back with something, and I can do this in my car. Okay. So like on my way to class, and it's for some reason not working right now, of course, because I'm giving an example, but there is a place that, I don't think it works outside the US, but if you click on this there's a little button right here, when in the AI chat, and you can actually talk to it. I put mine in my car, and like on my way to class, I'll say, I have a lecture I have to do on, Shakespeare's Macbeth, and I want to talk about Lady Macbeth. Can you give me a 45-minute lesson plan that includes 15 minutes of introduction, 15 minutes of an activity for my students to do, a wrap up, and then a takeaway. And it'll write me a 45-minute lesson plan and give me all that information. A lot of people use this to practice interview skills. So they'll say, I have a job interview, ask me some questions about becoming a CEO, ask me some questions about, and it'll interview you. But you can have it interview you, get information, and then write the essay from that. You can do all kinds of really interesting stuff with ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini. Llama, which is an open source, and you can get a lot of really fascinating ways to apply information and to practice with information. Ethan Mollick, who is the I think he's the technology director for the Wharton Business School, is really involved in AI. He's very active on LinkedIn. He has some great things that he writes about using AI in business. And if you're looking for someone great to follow, I would follow Ethan Mollick, absolutely. He talks about, in one of the talks that I listened to, he was talking about how he used to have his classes and he would have the students write a business plan, and then they would write a marketing plan, and then maybe they would talk about what their product was and do a presentation. But now he has them create a with AI, create a marketing plan, create the thing, go to the maker space and make an actual object, pitch it actually to someone who might be able to bring that to market, and he'll do that in a quarter, 10 weeks. And he said he could not have been able to do that without AI. So AI is making people much more efficient, much more able to get a lot of stuff done. But you have to realize it's not just a cheating machine. It's something that you have to talk to, you have to work with, and it's not like Google. So don't ever use AI like Google, okay? You don't say, I want to find out information about A, because you don't want to find facts from AI. AI is very bad with facts. Go to Google for that. But if you want to suss out an idea, this is a great place to do it. AI is a great place to do it because you can go back and forth. There has to be a lot of questioning, a lot of adjusting, a lot of reminding AI what your purpose is. You have to go back and forth with it, kind of like it's a really, really smart but annoying child. So it doesn't really have intellect, but you have to treat it that way, and it's going to be bratty. It will sometimes ignore what you say. It won't do things. You have to keep reminding it to do things. But if you keep doing that, eventually you might get something that's just absolutely amazing. And you have to have the patience to just keep working with it.
Thanks so much for that, Michelle. But I have another question for you here in terms of some of the concerns that we have as admissions consultants on this side of the table. Most of the interactions with AI tools are stored on various different platforms. So there are concerns about data privacy, possible data breaches or leaks, and most importantly, unintentional plagiarism. So you could, by mistake, as you said, you could upload a resume and essays and get the feedback and all that, but it is possibly going to live in the world somewhere or other things yet, right? So what do you think are other threats that you're seeing?
Okay, first of all, never, ever, ever, ever put proprietary information into AI. I can't say this enough. Never put your name, never put financial information, never put your address, never put anything that is research data. Never do any of that with AI. You can hint at it, even if you anonymize things from research data and you stick it into AI, AI can actually undo that anonymization because it has so much data that it could really just refill out who those people are. It's it's so powerful. So you have to be really careful not to do that unless you have permission from whomever you're working with. So don't make those mistakes, first of all, because that is very bad. You want to make sure that if you do that, you're going to be using a proprietary, maybe an in-house AI system. And there's a lot of ways that people can use APIs and open resources, open AI platforms to create an in-house system that you can use for any of that information. But you have to be really careful with it. Also, AI is very biased. You have to be careful about the biases. And you have to be really careful always about, and it actually is the technical term for this is hallucination. Because AI will hallucinate not only information, but it will hallucinate sources, and it will hallucinate entire books. It will make things up. And then if you ask it if it's really exists, it'll say, oh, absolutely it exists. Because you can't, you just absolutely can't trust it. So these are the things you have to be careful with. Also, it's really easy to start thinking that you could use AI to do the writing for you. And when you do that, it's always a mistake. You really have to, we tell our students, this is what you do. You brainstorm with it. You use it as a tutor. We have a tutorial program where you ask AI to serve as a tutor. And as a tutor, it would never give you the answers or rewrite your essay, but go over the essay and give you ideas for ways that it could be better. We have an editing program where we ask it to go in and make minimal changes to something for syntax, grammar, spelling, etc. But then give us a bullet list of everything you changed so that we can check it to make sure. And yes, AI is a lot of work. There is no shortcut. So if you're using AI, yes, it can give you great ideas. It can improve the way that you write or speak, especially in English, and especially if you're English as a second language. But you want to make sure that you're checking everything. And we tell everyone absolutely never, ever, ever write about something you don't know with AI. Because if you don't know it and AI hallucinates, you won't know it hallucinated. So you have to be really careful to only write about stuff you know. And we are storytellers. I mean, human beings are storytellers. So you want to be able to tell your story, not have somebody else, some other entity make up a story for you, because it will lack sincerity. So you need to make sure that you have your own story, and that story, yes, you can use AI to edit it. You can use AI to perfect it. You can use AI to get some ideas of how to enhance it. But please don't use AI instead of your great stories, because that will ring very false.
I have a couple questions. This is so fascinating. So first of all, to coin the term, to use the term hallucinations, I know that the author has that's the name of his book, but that's very evocative, right? And I do know that, certainly, I think it's called like Dreams of Electric Sheep. There's different kinds of computer programs, which I have a screensaver that is all put in to different people's input, and it constantly changes. But hallucinations, really, that's the word that's used.
Yeah, it's really weird that they use that word, but they've been using that word since like the beginning of AI. And I guess the hallucinations were pretty crazy at first, and maybe they've gotten less crazy, but they're still called hallucinations. That's still the technical term.
It's interesting. At the same time that different kinds of medicines are becoming legal, we have AI that's kind of creating a bridge. But I'm also curious, like, I think for both of you, for Michelle, how do you grade? Do you ever put your students' essays into the system and then see what the system says about what kind of grade the student would get? Or Kelly, like, if you have an essay that someone's working on, have you put that into AI to see have you wound up using the tools as that kind of reflective dance?
Who would you like to go first?
Both.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Why don't you start?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I haven't used it as you put it, the reflective dance. It's interesting to think of it that way. I think one of the things that schools are doing, and I think we are aware of, and perhaps starting to look at as well, is the AI detectors, and trying to get a sense of like how. Oh no, Michelle covered her eyes. I can't wait to hear from her. Just trying to get a sense of how much of this, like, is it 95% or is it 10%? Because I know there's false positives. And so should I, should that be something that, that is just something that we all understand, and that we have a sense of to what extent is this being used, and to what extent is this allowing a candidate to really convey a story that is authentic. And so I have not done what you were describing, though, as the and I forget how you described it, but as the dance.
The reflective
dance. Yeah.
The reflective. I mean, it's an interesting, it's like one of those mirrors,
Yeah.
those in the halls where you just have the mirror that goes,
Yeah.
and then you see the same thing. But I would imagine
I always do the chorus line with the mirror.
Yeah. I would think also, like what you were saying, Michelle, and we'll get back to the grade, but when you were saying about how when you put information in, it winds up then living in, it's like this constantly amassing data pool that's being reinforced all the time. And I know that at least on some social media channels, friends of mine will say, put your name in ChatGPT and ask it to tell you something that you don't know about yourself, and then just prod it to see like where you come up and what it thinks of you. And it's pretty positive. So it's interesting to think of it as bratty. It's interesting to think.
It's very bratty. Very bratty.
Michelle, can you comment on the grades and also the
okay, so AI detectors are absolutely ineffective. Never use an AI detector. I'm going to tell you right now. First of all, people are going to start getting sued. The suits have already started. The lawsuits have already started about AI detectors, because there's paper after paper after paper after paper that show that AI detectors are, first of all, biased against non-native English writers. They're biased against people who have disabilities. They're biased against anyone who has doesn't have a sophisticated use of language. OpenAI quietly shut down its own AI detector because they said that it was so ineffective. Paraphrasing can evade any detector. Also, Claude doesn't show up in AI detectors. So because it's based on a different large language model than ChatGPT, and most of them are based on ChatGPT. So all of these papers, and you can find them on the internet. All you have to do is stick in, AI detectors inefficient. People are very innocent and naive about what AI is. They don't understand that AI is in Grammarly, AI is in Microsoft Word, AI is in Google, AI is in everything that you are doing. So when somebody says an AI detector, you're like, what kind of AI detecting what? So these are the things that we have decided to do with our classes. Number one is we don't care if our students use AI or not. They should learn how to use AI. They should be using AI. But number one is you don't sound like you used AI. If you sound like you used AI, then we're going to mark you down. Okay? You need to make sure that you're checking everything, that everything is backed by evidence, that everything is correctly identified. You're transparent. You have a transparency statement. You want to make sure, and our rubrics, okay, so this is the thing about our rubrics. We have decided that if it's mechanical, hand it to the machine. So mechanics include spelling, grammar, punctuation, and sometimes organization. So if it's mechanical, hand it to the machine, okay? What's left is human. And this is what our students need to know: how to find their voice, how to listen to what your audience needs. So if I tell my students, I want you to write a peer response in discussion to other students, and they write stuff like, with $5 words, as my mother would call them, that's not how a peer talks to a peer. So what do I do in my rubric? First of all, number one, you can't prove that someone used AI. You can't. It's absolutely impossible to prove. You can't prove that they did use AI. You can't prove that they didn't use AI. Okay. So there's a couple things here. I cannot tell my students that you failed because you used AI, because I can't prove they used AI. So I removed AI. We removed AI from, and Eugenia's part of this. We work together in everything, and she's amazing. She's an amazing researcher, and she's so creative and amazing. So one of the things that we do, and is we put in voice, tone, and audience awareness. So did you have that voice? We put in, did you follow the directions? Okay, because following directions is significant. And if your students can't follow directions, then they are not going to succeed in the AI world, because directions are significant and they're very complex. So we have very complex, very detailed directions about exactly what we want our students to do. We don't write things like, give me an analysis of, Macbeth. We say, give us an analysis of Macbeth. In the first paragraph, we want this. In the second paragraph, we want that. In the third paragraph, we want this. You have to use this kind of structure. You have to give us reflective footnotes. And so it's piling one on top of another. AI can't follow that. They can use AI, but AI is where they start. It's not where they finish.
Mm-hmm.
And directions are super important. So, and did you follow the idea of the essay? So did you have an understanding of the rhetorical situation? So what is this writing going to be used for, and why is it important? So these are the things that are on our rubrics now. We don't have so much spelling, grammar, punctuation. Instead, we have those things. And they don't mention AI. They're just really good ideas of how you write. And that is what is on our rubric, is things that always should have been on the rubric and now are stars on a rubric.
Wow. There's so many things that it brought to my mind. One of it is like the image that came to me was like somebody using a Segway to just go faster than somebody else who's probably walking or even riding a bike. The second image that came to me was like a doping image, somebody doping, a doping scandal or something, an athlete doping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you were saying, I was very curious about what is the purpose of using AI? Is it for saving time, money, or effort? And also, like, there are so many hidden costs behind it in terms of environmental costs and other things, which probably right now a lot of us don't bring it into consideration. So I'm just curious about, like, what is the purpose of using AI? Like, and bringing to the analogies, which analogies do you think it fits, especially with respect to, say, MBA application side?
Okay, so when we use AI, the reason we use AI is because it levels the playing field. So there's some students who will never be fantastic writers. They didn't have a privileged education. They weren't speaking English from the time that they were young. They maybe they were ill for a couple of years, or they have a disability. Those students have been cycling back and forth with the same information in writing classes since middle school. Nothing new. And they're not getting any better. So we have 15 weeks to make these students good writers. And we have in our English 1102 class, we have 15 weeks to make them researchers. So we use AI to teach how to read. We use AI to teach how to research. We use AI to test thesis statements. We use AI to test ideas. And these students, and all of these are applicable to business. To test ideas, to get ideas for a thesis, for research. So we know that our students are not good readers. We've had a problem with students, even in the Ivy Leagues, reading well since the 80s. So we need to teach our students again how to read. And when Eugenia and I looked into reading research, we discovered the very scary thing that most reading research ends at middle school. Nobody's talking about high school and college with teaching reading. And we significantly need to teach reading to our students. So how do you teach reading? Well, we teach them how to summarize, how to get a condensed summary, how to write a condensed summary, how to use that condensed summary to read something carefully and to get an analysis and an evaluation from it. These are all really important things for business because you're going to be looking through proposals, you're going to be doing research, and you need to be able to compile a lot of information quickly. So these are all really significant to anyone who is going to be succeeding in the next 10, 15, 20 years. You have to be able to be incredibly efficient. And that's what we're teaching. That's what we need AI for, is to level that playing field and then push those students up into higher level thinking. It's called HOTS, higher level thinking skills. And those are critical thinking skills. And those are things that our students have not been able to do because they've been stuck down here with people saying, oh, first you have to learn how to do subject verb agreement. Then you have to learn how to do prepositions. Okay, what is that going to do to help my student succeed, get into a graduate program, and become a business leader? It's not. So how can I speed up the capability of those mechanics and move into those critical thinking skills? And what we found, and we've done the research, we found that there was significant increase in critical thinking skills and in the students' ability to do research and for them to write much more effectively than students who do not use AI. We compared our qualitative and our quantitative, and our quantitative was based not only, what we did is we took a rubric that's used for analyzing whether or not someone is doing well in English 1102 before they leave the program. So we use that to evaluate the professor and the curriculum. So we use this tool with all of our students who are in our classes that are AI, and we compared them to students who were not in AI classes. And then we took the same tool and we compared the students that we have now in our AI classes to students we had in the past before there was AI, so that we could also adjust for our teaching. And what we found was there were significant advantages. And it really helped our students to be much better critical thinkers, much better readers, and much better writers.
I think I'm going to send you a demo of my product, Michelle. I created a speed reading platform. And a lot of what you're saying really just, we are talking, my team is talking, how do we incorporate AI into this? Like teaching students to read better, more comprehensively, faster. Like the only thing that really stops us is our eyes, but it really buys you more time for critical thinking. Right. So yeah, I'm sending you a demo.
That's what our students said. They said that they had much more time to think about stuff.
Yeah.
And actually we were teaching research, and our students kept saying that this helped their creative writing. And we were like, creative writing? We're not teaching creative writing. We kept reading their essays and going, what? You know, because we have them reflect on everything they've done in the class. And yeah, we found out that they believed that researching in such a creative way was really opening them up. And they were having a whole bunch of new ideas, great kind of mind storms about the things that they were doing, the things that they were researching, and they were things that they would not have realized without AI.
This might be a technical question, but when you were talking before about telling ChatGPT to write a business school essay, you said they've seen the business school essays that have been submitted. Isn't there some stuff like business school essays that aren't there things that are just under lock and key that they actually that ChatGPT doesn't have access to? Like, how would it know what a successful business school essay would be, except if there's a few that are online and then they would all kind of seem the same each time you put those prompts in? Is anything under lock and key?
I'm sure that there's a lot of stuff under lock and key, but there's also a lot of people who have shared things, you know. So you got into business school, you want to share your essay with everyone, all of your friends and family on email or on Google or on Instagram or whatever, and ChatGPT is going to pick that up, or Claude or Llama is going to pick that up. It's going to put it into its research database. There's a lot of people in a lot of different languages who are doing this. And every time you stick something into an open platform like that, it's being incorporated into the data for AI. And you also have to
email.
Yeah, there's a lot of emails that probably have, for example, okay, Gemini is one of the major AI programs. So who owns Gemini? Google. And how much data has been mined and whose data and for what purpose and where, we don't know. But I do know that 3 or 4 years ago, there was a big splash because Google said, if you're going to use Drive, you have to understand that we're allowed to mine your data. I don't know if people have paid attention to their Google Drive since that time, but there's a lot of those small little things in almost every bit of stuff that we're using. Microsoft Copilot, anything you were writing in Microsoft may have been, and I don't know, but it may have been included in their data set. It was, I'm sure, anonymized, and I'm sure that it isn't something that probably has your name and address on it anymore, but probably it would have the email. So, and think about all the emails people have shared and the emails that people have stuck out there. There's a huge, billions and billions of pieces of information in these data sets.
Can I ask a follow-up question, Michelle?
Sure. Sorry, my dog is attacking me. Just 1 second. No. Okay. Sorry.
It's fascinating. So if AI is picking up, versions of essays, whether they're being shared or however, if it's mining data, it's picking up the good ones and the bad ones, right?
Yes.
So
yes, absolutely.
To me, I mean, there's so much power here, and it feels to me like, and to a lot of people, I'm sure, like the wild, wild west. Like it's not harnessed yet, right?
That's absolutely true.
And so
yes, it is the wild west.
to leave somebody with the thinking that, like this is the answer to what I need to do in order to apply to business school and be accepted. Like, I don't know that that's necessarily where we are yet. Right. I mean, could it get there? Maybe. I mean, it's blowing my mind every time I learn about it.
It's not going to give you all the best, but it is going to give you a model. And we've always used models, right? Mm-hmm. And we've always used models to teach people how to do stuff. And so it's no different when you use an AI model, except that maybe you are able to tailor that model to your specific information. But as I say, you always have to be very careful to read it over and edit it and make sure that it is yours.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. So fascinating.
And, here I'm thinking about, there are schools which say that don't use AI at all. And there are some schools which say that we are okay with it as long as you say how you used it and for what, etc. And there are some schools which say that we don't care, like what tools you use in order to do it, as long as it's your own authentic expression and your own original work. So I'm curious about what happens if, for example, a student uses AI to come up with something and then uses this for the school, which says that, hey, we said no AI and so on, right? Because I'm just thinking from the student's perspective, because, the MBA application process is incredibly difficult, given that students have to balance like work and the test prep and, profile building and so many things, right? So the idea would be to make their lives easier. So by bringing this AI in the mix, do you think that it's going to be a disadvantage for students because of these various different policies, and what policies should come up in both in admissions and in the classroom?
So are you asking me or?
Yeah, both of you can like answer. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, I was just thinking about, you know, schools. I mean, Michelle, you're so ahead of the curve, it seems. With I know universities are, as we're talking to um, colleagues in business schools or across consultants, we know that schools are still grappling with how they're going to use this tool. And then how is that then reflected in like the admissions policy for the admissions office? And there's Krithika was right. There's so much between, you know, schools that say we don't have a policy on it to others that say you can't use it. And so when you slapped your head whenever I said something about AI detection,
Actors,
it
yeah.
really it's not because it's not an aha gotcha. It's a first for myself. It's fascinating that it even does that.
Right.
And I'm not necessarily, if I see something that just seems super generic, it's more curiosity than anything else. You know, I mean, it's not something that I'm even doing every time I work with a candidate, but it's something like it's a conversation that's being had, which is to what extent is using AI in the admissions process appropriate, and what is the threshold and what are the parameters. And so I feel like and I think I'm getting off track from your question, Kirthika, so please feel free to steer me. But I feel like business schools are finding their way at this time, and there have been some that have created a framework. There are others that are working on it now. It will be fascinating to me to see where we end up and what business schools end up doing, or universities. It doesn't just have to be business schools, but graduate schools do, relative to how, you know, what is the framework for allowing AI, or recognizing that AI is part of the process, is really what I think it is, recognizing that it's part of the process.
And I think that recognizing it is something that has to be talked about, because people are not going to be able to tell if somebody's using AI appropriately. You can't tell that they use AI. So if someone says no AI, well, you know, heck, like how could you tell? And then how could you prove it? You can't.
Yeah.
So this is the situation. You can say no AI, but it's not going to really be something that that the business school is going to be able to have a lot of control over.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at this. Do you want someone coming into a business school who doesn't use AI, who has no idea about this, when it's going to be the charging the future of everything in business? Or do you want somebody who really has some knowledge about it, who's researched it, who's worked with it? So these are the kind of questions that business schools are going to have to grapple with. Yeah. And the way that we've looked at it is, what is going to serve our students best? Mm-hmm. Having them sit down and write something on paper with a pencil, is that going to serve them best? Or learning to use AI appropriately, ethically, responsibly, and transparently? These are the things that we have grappled with in our courses, and we think that we have come up with the answer, which is we have to teach students how to use this, because the students who don't know how to use it are the ones who are going to be cheating, and the students who do know how to use it are going to be the ones who are going to be excelling.
And I did not mean to get
no, you're not absolutely not.
No, I meant, I wasn't trying to put myself in the business school basket. Just 23 years in business school, sometimes that's just my default.
Well, that's the purpose of the broadcast, right? It's getting
and it can be graduate school in general, but business school specifically. But we know that corporate recruiters want graduates that have AI skills, and I think that, you know, that is something, and it's here, and we need to figure out how to harness it. I think the challenge for the admissions office is really being able to use the information that's provided in an application in a fair way to assess the candidate's ability capabilities, right? Ability to handle the coursework, their ability to be successful. And I think that's really what the challenge is, you know,
but are they going to be able to, I mean, if somebody is using AI,
yeah.
isn't that important to their capability and their success?
Yeah,
I mean, is anybody in 5 years not going to be using AI in business?
I totally agree. 100%
So,
agree. And I'm like, I'm not even trying to argue because
no. I'm just
you.
saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. But I think where we are at this point in time is just like, how do we do what it is that we need to do from the admissions office standpoint, and then from as consultants, how do we help prepare applicants to put together their best story and in a way that allows them to stand out from other applicants
and to keep their humanity.
I'm sorry.
And to keep their humanity.
And
this is so important.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing that our students write about when they're writing their reflections,
yeah.
is that struggle to keep their own voice, to keep their humanness in their writing. And that's a struggle that everyone is going to have to deal with in the next 5, 10, 20 years, is how do I make sure that I am not homogenized by AI? Mm-hmm. And that I can tell my story, that my story is unique, and that I can find the uniqueness of my story to share.
Yeah, agreed.
I got to tell you, I watched the movie AI not that long ago, and it has stood up, and it was amazing to watch it from the perspective that we're living with AI in a different way than when that movie was actually created decades ago. I don't remember the exact date of it, but it was really remarkable in coming to it on this side of the bookend of where we are now. Mm-hmm. So I definitely recommend viewers to watch that if they have any free time. I mean, you will now have more free time, because if you use AI, then you'll be gaining some time. I'm also curious about, how do we train students to think really critically if we're not teaching them how to use their brain? Like, what's going to be the next way to really, in the education sphere, business school, whatever, in having those critical thinking skills? If the machines are doing some of these pieces for us, we need to be able to recognize it. Like, so much of that discernment that you're talking about needs to happen with the training that they've gotten before. And I feel like we're at this pivot point, you know, historically. It's a really,
and that's the thing, is that we were, Eugenia and I presented at EDUCAUSE for a presentation for one of the community of practices in AI. So they asked us, how can you teach critical thinking skills with AI? And our answer was, you can't teach critical thinking skills without AI. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that our students are taught, and our faculty are taught actually too, that argument is the highest form of critical thinking skills. But if they're just arguing bullshit, okay, and they've pulled it off of Procon and they've stuck some Wikipedia articles in there, that is not critical thinking skills. So what is critical thinking skills is doing that hard research and using AI to find those sources, to be able to get in there and read stuff and understand what it means, even if you may not have a background in that area. Using AI to adjust the reading level. We tell our students, you go into an article, if you don't understand it, ask AI to summarize it as if you're in 6th grade. Then once you understand that, to summarize it as if you're in 9th grade. And then finally, try reading the article just directly. And each iteration, you'll learn more and more and more. Before, when I was teaching this, before AI, I used to tell my students, go into the children's library and find this book in the children's library and read about it, because children, they assume, don't know anything, and so they tell them everything. And so nothing is assumed. Well, you can do that right now on your desktop with AI, and you can get a full understanding of topics that may have been beyond you and that you want to understand. So it can help all of us become much better critical thinkers.
This is
We are
so
definitely
fascinating.
over time, but we're not leaving yet. We're not letting
Yeah,
you leave yet.
we have to teach our students how to use these tools. They're powerful, and they have a lot of ethical and responsibility issues connected to them. And if we aren't teaching our students how to use them, we're saying, oh, it's a cheating machine, we have to stay away from it, it's dangerous, and a lot of our students are afraid of AI. They're scared to death of it, and they don't, because nobody has taught them how to use it. And this is ridiculous. We need to take this tool. I always tell people, a lot of people, when something's new, they run away from it. When something's new, I run towards it screaming. And and all of us need to be running towards it screaming and playing with it. There's nothing that you can hurt with it. Just start playing with it. See what it can do. One of the people I follow on LinkedIn, I wish I knew which person, I think it's Daryl Coxon, wrote this fabulous thing about prompting. And he said, I used to tell my students to talk to AI like it's human, but now I tell my students to talk to AI as if it's a human that they suspect might be a powerful wizard. And so some of the prompts he gave were like amazing. They were like, once you give me the answer, divide yourself into 2 parts and debate it and tell me what all the pros and cons are about it. Or once you get to a conclusion here, I want you to go 10 years in the future and look back on the answer you gave me. Is it still true? So these are the kinds of things that you can start to play with and get these scenarios. And when you build scenarios, especially in business for a product or a concept, AI can really help you with this stuff. My son is a project director, and he's only 27, but he's a project director for building big data warehouses. He's a project manager, which is a crazy place to be when you're 27 or 28. And I said, what are you doing with AI? And he said, well, we have an enterprise co-pilot that my company lets me put proprietary information in because we have to sign into it. It doesn't keep our information, it doesn't share it. So he's really sure about the security about it. But what he does with it is fascinating. Like when he's walking around a job site, he'll say, tag cleaning crew, we need to work on this thing. Tag upper level management, we need to consider these ideas. Tag subcontractor. And then at the end of the day, he'll say, give me a report for each one of the tags. Then he sends out an email with a full report at the end of the day. People are like, wow, you're amazing. He's just using AI. And he's using AI very efficiently to save him. He said he's saving 15 hours a week using AI.
And on the creative side, you can have Oscar Wilde have a conversation with Shakespeare about.
Yes, you can. And you can go to Character AI and play with all of those ideas. Character AI is becoming very popular, and you can go in and have discussions you could go talk to Elon Musk or anyone about your ideas. Of course, Character AI, though, is not going to be careful about their data security like a proprietary, enterprise system that, but you can still play with some general ideas. You have to just be really careful.
This is also fascinating, but I just really wanted to get this in terms of, I feel that the admissions process has to change. It cannot be the way that it is right now, especially in terms of even the questions they're asking, the medium or the mode and other things that they're using. And for recommendations, definitely, because whether the applicants use it or not, recommenders are like ready to run to AI to churn out a cookie cutter recommendation form, which doesn't really like reflect any of the abilities of the poor applicant. But so what are some of the changes that we can expect in the MBA applications world, the admissions world, that you would love to see next year? This is to both of you.
Yeah, I would just say, some of the things that I think we could see, I agree that the application process will need to change, and it's a good thing to have an evolving process. It'll be interesting to see I know that many schools have, put a lot of weight on the interview. What does that look like in the future? And does it have more weight because it's in the moment and you're getting information that that maybe you wouldn't otherwise be able to, how do I say this? I guess maybe just it's in the moment. The interview is important to understand how the person can communicate their plan for their education and their career, and it's important to have that conversation. So maybe that takes up even more of an importance. Or, is there? I know that there are a couple of schools now that are requiring people that have taken the GMAT to take the now separated analytical writing portion
Business writing
of the,
assessment, yeah.
and so what's going to happen there? And clearly they want to see a sample of writing from the candidate, and that right now happens to be the only way that or one of the only ways that can be done. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves. I do think that the video essays, we've also seen a greater, a rise in, but it'll be interesting to see. I was reading a little bit about the ability for AI to, for a tool like Akira Talent, for it to ask follow-up questions with an interview as well. And so what might happen to that? So it's going to be fascinating. I don't know the answer. I just can imagine. And now that I've had this conversation with Michelle, like I'm sure I'm going to be thinking about some things that were never even on my radar. And I just think it's a fascinating time to be part of the work that we do. I don't think anyone can say what's going to happen, but I think that as schools grapple with how to navigate this path, I think the admissions process will change. Some will get it right and some won't get it right. And we'll have to just keep iterating and try to get to a place where we're able to assess, we as schools are able to assess the ability of candidates and their potential for success.
I agree that the interview is going to be really important. Unfortunately, though, there's some people who don't interview well, so that's difficult. And they might be brilliant, and they may not interview well. So we need to have something that balances it. A couple of the things that we have found that are really effective, Eugenia Novokshchanova, who is the person I work with, my fellow researcher, she has a specialization in multimodal. So multimodal is incredibly important. We need to be starting to use multimodal in writing. There should be pictures, there should be videos, there should be infographics, there should be charts and graphs and everything else in with that writing. That writing shouldn't just be writing. Elsevier, which is the major journal publisher, has now, when you write a paper, you're supposed to also submit an infographic about what the paper is about. So this visual understanding of the world, this visual acuity, is becoming very, very important in our culture. It's already important in social media, and it's going to become more important, I think, in business. I think we also really need to pay attention to project-based learning. People should be presenting their projects. They should be showing a business plan that they've written and the product that they brought to market. They should be discussing how they've used their leadership within a specific situation, or even have situational moments brought up into the interview process. So, think quick. I've just come in here. I've been, I have a really great idea, but I know someone has stolen it and I don't know what to do. So you're the CEO. What do we do? What's your plan? Give them some kind of scenario where they have to work through it. And these are the kinds of things that these challenges, and I think more a challenge than just a presentation might be the future of how people need to be proving their worth, proving their mettle in business.
Well, everyone, thank you so much, Michelle and Kelly. This has been so fascinating and interesting. We're going to have a part 2 and probably a part 3. So we look forward to having you back. I want to tell you, I did put into ChatGPT how to thank our guests today while we were talking. Thank you to our guests for joining us today to explore the fascinating world of AI. Your insights highlighted how AI is transforming industries, including the admissions process for business schools, where it streamlines evaluations and personalizes candidate experiences. It's impressive to see how AI tools, including the platforms we use for this podcast, enhance our ability to connect and share knowledge. We appreciate your time and expertise in making this episode a valuable resource for our listeners. So, thank you so much. This is the personal add-on. It was fantastic. We totally appreciate it. And if you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe to our webcast, our podcast that will be coming out soon, we hope. And you'll see us next week, same time, same place, discussing an important topic on your MBA admissions journey. Thank you so much, Michelle and Kelly, and see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Bye, thanks.